In this video we are going to answer a bunch of Web3 questions that are frequently asked, such as what will the future of Web3 look like? How is Web3 better than Web 2? How much does a Web3 dev earn? And how hard is it to become one? So first off, what is Web3? In case you haven't seen our first video to 1 million views on this channel, let me explain Web3 in a few seconds. Web 3.0 uses the technology of cryptocurrency alongside the current protocols of Web 2.0. Now if that was too simple, basically Web 3 integrates cryptographic keys to prove ownership of certain digital assets like websites or game items, or personal information that's shared on the internet. Next question that usually comes up is people say, what's so bad about Web 2.0 apart from centralization? Web 2.0 is actually really great, which is why we've used it for so long. In fact, what most people call Web 3.0 didn't actually start entering the public thought until around a year or two ago with the surge of other new technologies like crypto and DeFi. However, as many users are becoming educated on the downfalls of centralization, they see Web 3.0 as a solution to avoid big corporations dominating the world. The main concerns of Web 2.0 are that big data companies are constantly collecting and mining information about you. So much so that they may know more about you than you do, even though this data is anonymized. If someone could connect this data to you, many people would be concerned. In fact, one of the big concepts of Web3 is online privacy and owning the information that you give to these big corporations. For example, when you use Google or Facebook, you're giving up all kinds of data that you may not even be thinking about, from the amount of time that you use an app to the location that you use it. Your data may even be connected with other people around you and their accounts, basically associating you with them. Or maybe your account can be tagged with things that interest you like camping or chess, or maybe a pet that you own. Some of the technologies of Web3 are helping to reduce this, so that we have more privacy online. So what if you could choose who you sold your private data to? Maybe you have a backlog of a bunch of search history. Well, normally Google would just take this data that you typed into Google and then sell it to advertisers without even asking you. What if you could instead sell it to companies that you wanted to and actually generate revenue from that, like $10 or a $50 a month payment, for example? Maybe you only wanted Chewy.com to see your browsing history, or maybe you only wanted Amazon.com to see your purchase history. Well, with Web 3.0 this could be possible. You could choose who you sell your data to and for how much. Another really interesting question is, will everything be Web 3? There's a ton of hype around Web 3 on things like Twitter, and the simple answer is not everything's going to be Web 3, and it shouldn't be Web 3. So one of our biggest problems in the world of crypto is people finding something cool and then going, oh my goodness, people are going to use this. In reality, nobody wants their coin or their token or their NFT, or even worse, nobody needs it. And since nobody needs it, what it is basically a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Well, with Web 3 it solves a specific problem, and a big part of that problem is ownership of web assets. Whenever you make a tweet, Twitter owns it. Whenever you share a link on Facebook, Meta owns it. Whenever you post a video on YouTube like this, Google technically owns it. Now I know it's my content, I created it, but guess what? Google can choose to delete it. They can choose to show it to 1 billion people, and if they wanted to, and they do choose to give me money so that I am incentivized to continue to make more videos, Google can do that. Even scarier, Google could take this video and change it. They could change what I say. Well, the technology of Web 3.0 makes it so that I truly own this piece of web content, not the publishing platform, and one of the ways that it does this is through the use of an immutable blockchain. But if I started talking about that, this video would get really technical really quickly. Another problem that Web 3 solves is related to digital identity. Now there is a very large part of the web that the ideas of privacy and asset ownership will not be wanted or needed, and because of this they will not involve Web 3. For example, I don't need to prove that I own a dog or who I am simply by using Google to view how much should I feed my dog. I mean, actually, if just browsing privacy is what we're after, we can actually reach a decent amount of web privacy without the Web 3.0 tools, simply by using a web browser like Brave or Chrome with a few extensions, or if we wanted to get really technical, something like Tor. What it really comes down to is that in fact most of the web traffic includes people searching for information like what food to feed their dog, how much water is in a pool, or what a blockchain is. It's basic educational information, and the tools that Web 3 offers don't really add any extra value to that experience. They're not solving a problem related to that. Think about it like this: Web 3 will mostly be used for platforms and tools that you originally used an email address and password for. Instead of using those, instead you will now use a public and private key to sign and verify things like banks, social media, email accounts. These are the specific places where Web 3 will shine, because there's a problem, and the problem is that these companies have your data and they're selling it. And that's what Web 3 is intending to solve. But if you think about it, the companies out there that Web 3.0 works well with, the bank, social media and email accounts, those companies don't want Web 3 because it'll take away their revenue sources. Moving on, let's get into the question, will Web 3 make me rich? So it is of my own personal opinion that Web 3 is very similar to the dot-com boom, where new technology is being established, and right now there's a lot of silly things out there. Do I think my children will be staking their NFTs or logging into their fridge with a public key? Probably not, but do I think this is the beginning of a decade that will change a lot of how the internet works? Yes. So back to if Web3 will make you rich using statistics, it will probably not. However, if you're one of the very few developers who create something that serves a lot of people and adds value to their life or makes them happy, it will be very likely that you'll be paid in proportion to the value that you create for them. In most cases, being early to Web3 won't make you rich. Owning your own data and selling it to another company probably won't bring you in $50 a month, it'll probably bring you in about $3. So if you want to get rich with Web3, you're going to have to put in a ton of work and thought behind it, because there are tons of people out there chasing the same money, who may be smarter or harder working than you. Speaking of that, let's move on to talking about being a Web3 developer. So I get asked this question a lot: how hard is it to be a Web3 developer? The question is a really interesting one, and it's one that's really difficult to answer. So being a Web3 developer isn't really an easy or a hard question. It's more of on a spectrum. I mean, it's really hard to be a great 1% Web3 developer, but it's pretty easy to be an average Web3 developer. You just have to have a little bit of background in programming. The switch from regular programming to Web3 programming isn't difficult. It's just learning a few new ideas, concepts, and syntaxes. On the other hand, if you have no experience of programming logic or creating any of your own web applications, even if those applications were simply copied from a tutorial, there's going to be a pretty decent learning curve, and it's going to be more difficult than if you already knew another programming language. Basically, once you understand basic program logic, how syntax changes among different languages, and how to Google stuff to make it work, you could probably learn with some homemade projects fairly quickly about how to be a Web3 developer. It's not that difficult to be a Web3 developer, but it's really hard to be a great Web3 developer. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope that maybe you've learned something, and most of all, I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.